Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing abrupt climate change. And I'm going to just dive into finishing up this article that I was reading yesterday, Human Extinction by 2026. I left off with this question: how does the elite maintain this control over political, economic, military, legal, and social structures and processes? By the way, if you notice, the blue light on my computer is gone, so I figured it out finally. Hopefully I will sleep better tonight, because I have been sleeping like crap. And I don't know if it doesn't all have to do with the blue light, but I have been sleeping horribly for the last couple of weeks, and due to many things. Excuse me. The sociology of destruction of the biosphere. As explained in the literature on the sociology of knowledge, reality is socially constructed. That is, if an individual is born or introduced into a society in which particular institutions are in control, and behaviors such as chronic overconsumption, unlimited profit-making, rampant exploitation of the environment, and grotesque violence against at least some people are practiced, then the typical individual will accept the existence of these institutions and adopt the behaviors of the people around them, even though the institutions and behaviors are dysfunctional and violent. But while the sociology of knowledge literature recognizes that children must be taught to behave, and once taught must be kept in line to maintain the institutional order, this literature clearly has no understanding of the nature and extent of the violence to which each child is actually subjected in order to achieve the desired socialization. This terrorization, as I label it, is so comprehensive that the typical child quickly becomes incapable of using their own intellect and emotional capacities, including conscience and courage, to actually evaluate Jesus, any institution or behavior, before adopting it themselves. Obviously, then, they quickly become too terrified to overly challenge dysfunctional institutions and behaviors as well. Moreover, as a result of this ongoing terrorization inflicted by the significant adults, and particularly the parents in the child's life, the child soon becomes too unconsciously afraid to resist the behavioral violence that is inflicted on them personally in many forms, as outlined briefly in the next section, so that they are taught to behave and kept in line. In response to elite-driven imperatives, then, such as "you are what you own," to encourage very profitable overconsumption, most people are delusionarily happy while utterly trapped, behaving exactly as elites manipulate them. They are devoid of the psychological capacity to critique and resist, and the elite-preferred behavior quickly acquires the status of being the only and right way to behave, irrespective of its dysfunctionality. In essence, virtually all humans fearfully adopt dysfunctional social behaviors such as overconsumption and profit-making at the expense of the biosphere, rather than intelligently, conscientiously, and courageously analyzing the total situation, including the moral and ecological dimensions of it, and behaving appropriately in the context. Given the pervasiveness and power of elite institutions ranging from those mentioned above to the corporate media and psychiatry, resistance to violent socialization of both children and adults requires considerable awareness, not to mention courage. And so our fear makes virtually all of us succumb to the socialization pressure that is violence, to accept existing institutions and participate in widespread social behaviors such as overconsumption that are dysfunctional and violent. The psychology of destruction of the biosphere. This happens because each child from birth is terrorized, again, what we like to call socialized, until they become a slave, willing to work, and in industrialized countries, at least to overconsume as directed. Under an unrelenting regime of visible, invisible, and utterly invisible violence, each child unconsciously surrenders their search in pursuit of their own unique and powerful destiny and succumbs to the obedience that every adult demands. Why do adults demand this? Because the idea of a powerful child who courageously follows their own self-will terrifies adults. So how does this happen? unfortunately far too easily. And strange though it may seem, it is not just the visible violence, such as hitting, screaming, and sexually abusing, that we normally label violence that causes the main damage. Although this is extremely damaging, the largest component of damage arises from the invisible and utterly invisible violence that we adults unconsciously inflict on children during the ordinary course of the day. Boom, boom, and boom. Tragically, the bulk of this violence occurs in the family home and at school. So what is invisible violence? It is the little things that we do every day, partly because we are just too busy. Good God. I was just talking about this with somebody, that the way to really destroy a child's head is to, little by little, not, overt violence isn't just overt, but, you can really destroy a child by, taking care of them and giving them all the food they need and, sending them to school clean every day. Like, you can still really jack a child up, even though from the outside, everything looks great. For example, when we do not allow time to listen to and value a child's thoughts and feelings, the child learns to listen to themselves, thus destroying their internal communication system. The child learns to not listen to themselves. That's what I was, yeah. When we do not let a child say what they want or ignore them when they do, the child develops communication and behavioral dysfunctionalities as they keep trying to meet their own needs, which as a basic survival strategy they are genetically programmed to do. When we blame, condemn, insult, mock, embarrass, shame, humiliate, taunt, goad, guilt trip, deceive, lie to, bribe, blackmail, moralize with, and or judge a child, we both undermine their sense of self-worth and teach them to blame, condemn, insult, mock, embarrass, shame, humiliate, taunt, goad, guilt trip, deceive, lie, bribe, blackmail, moralize, and or judge. The fundamental outcome of being bombarded throughout their childhood by this invisible violence is that the child is utterly overwhelmed by feelings of fear, pain, anger, and sadness, among many others. However, mothers, fathers, teachers, religious figures, and other adults also actively interfere with the expression of these feelings and the behavioral responses that are naturally generated by them. And it is this utterly invisible violence that explains why the dysfunctional behavioral outcomes actually occur. For example, by ignoring a child when they express their feelings, by comforting, reassuring, or distracting a child when they express their feelings, by laughing at or ridiculing their feelings, by terrorizing a child into not expressing their feelings, for instance, by screaming at them when they cry or get angry, and or by violently controlling a behavior that is generated by their feelings. For example, by hitting them, restraining them, or locking them into a room, the child has no choice but to unconsciously suppress their awareness of these feelings. However, once a child has been terrorized into suppressing their awareness of their feelings rather than being allowed to have their feelings and to act on them, the child has also unconsciously suppressed their awareness of the reality that caused those feelings. This has many outcomes that are disastrous for the individual, for society, and for the biosphere, because the individual will now easily suppress their awareness of the feelings that would tell them how to act most functionally in any given circumstance, and they will progressively acquire a phenomenal variety of dysfunctional behaviors, including some that are violent towards themselves, others, and or the earth. Moreover, terrorizing the child has many flow-on effects. For example, once you terrorize a child into accepting certain information about themselves, other people, or the state of the world, the child becomes unconsciously fearful of dealing with new information, especially if this information is contradictory to what they have been terrorized in believing. As a result, the child will unconsciously dismiss new information out of hand. In short, the child has been terrorized in such a way that they are no longer capable. You can do this to an entire society, and that has been done. That exact thing has been done. And this is why we are utterly dysfunctional at the moment. Like completely dysfunctional, why it's very difficult for people to have balanced, nuanced conversations about things. And more people are just shouting their opinions and or, slash feelings at each other. In short, the child has been terrorized in such a way that they are no longer capable of learning, and their learning capacity is seriously diminished by excluding any information that is not a simple extension of what they already know. This is one important explanation why some people are climate deniers and most others do nothing in response to the climate catastrophe. Consequently, Under this onslaught of terror and violence, the child surrenders their own unique self and takes on their socially constructed delusional identity, which gives them relief from being terrorized while securing the approval they crave to survive. So if we want to end violence against the biosphere, we must tackle this fundamental cause, primarily the means. This means giving everyone, child and adult alike, all the space they need to feel deeply what they want to do, and then to let them do it, or to have the emotional responses that they naturally have if they are prevented from doing so. For some insight into the critical role that school plays in reducing virtually all children to wage slaves for employment in some menial or professional role, or as cannon fodder for the military, while stripping them of the capacity to ask penetrating questions about the very nature of society and their own role in it. See, do we want school or education? In summary, given that human society is so dysfunctional, beginning with the fact that human beings do not know how to parent or educate their children to nurture their unique and extraordinary potential, humans face a monumental challenge in an incredibly short time frame to have any chance of survival. And we are going to have to fix a lot more things than just our destruction of the biosphere if we are to succeed, given that ecologically destructive behavior and institutions have their origin in dysfunctional psychology, societies, and political economy. To reiterate, however, it is our often unconscious fear that underpins every problem. Whether it is the fear getting in the way of our capacity to intelligently analyze the various structures and behaviors that generate the interrelated crisis in which we now find ourselves, or the fear undermining our courage to act powerfully in response to these crises, acknowledging and dealing with our fear is the core of any strategy for survival. Yes, and yes. So what's the plan? Let's start with you. If you consider the evidence in relation to destruction of our biosphere, essentially one of two things will happen. Either you will be powerful enough, both emotionally and intellectually, to grapple with this evidence, and you will take strategic action that has ongoing positive impact on the crisis, or your unconscious fear will simply use one of its lifelong mechanisms to remove awareness of what you have just read from your mind, or otherwise delude you, such as by making you believe you are powerless to act differently or that you are doing enough already. This immobilizing fear, whether or not you experience it unconsciously, it is a primary outcome of the terrorization to which you are subjected as a child. So if you sense that improving your own functionality so that you can fully access your emotional responses, conscience, and courage is a priority, try putting feelings first. If you already feel able to act powerfully in response to this multifaceted crisis and in a way which will have strategic impact, you are invited to consider joining those participating in the Flame Tree Project, which outlines a simple plan for people to systematically reduce their consumption by at least 80%, involving both energy and resources of every kind, water, household energy, transport fuels, metals, meat, paper, and plastic. Maybe I'll read this one day, not right now. But, oh, geez, I didn't want to do that. I did not want to do that. What I wanted to do, thank you, while dramatically expanding their individual community self-reliance in 16 areas so that all environmental concerns are effectively addressed. You might also consider signing the online pledge, the People's Charter to create a nonviolent world, if you are interested in nurturing children. So actually, a lot of these links and what he has to say are the same things that are said in previous articles that I have read. So I don't think that there's much new in this. I'm going to link the rest of this article below. Let me just, he's just talking about a bunch of links, so I don't need to say that. Conclusion: the evidence in relation to destruction of the Earth's biosphere, leading to ongoing and rapid degradation of all ecosystems and their services, is readily available and overwhelming. The many and varied forms of destruction are having synergistic impact. Insignificant amount of vast evidence in relation to this destruction is sampled above. There is a notable group of prominent climate scientists who present compelling evidence that human extinction will occur by 2026 as a result of a projected 10 degrees Celsius increase in global temperature above the pre-industrial level by this date. The primary document for this is noted above, and this document, together with the evidence it cites, is readily available to be read and analyzed by everyone, largely separately from the climate catastrophe, although now increasingly complicated by it. Earth's sixth mass extinction is already advancing rapidly as we destroy habitat, and on our current trajectory, all species will soon enter the fossil record. Why? Because we live in a world in which political, economic, military, legal, and social structures and processes of human society are utterly incapable of producing either functional human beings or governance mechanisms that take into account and respect the ecological realities of Earth's biosphere. So, to reiterate, we are on a fast track to extinction. On the current trajectory, assuming we can avert nuclear war, sometime between 2021 and 2026, the last human will take their final breath. That is fairly incredible. If you think about, Val brought up something about 2021, just the enormity of how soon that is, and how much life would be lost in that short amount of time. Our only prospect of survival, and it still has only a remote chance of succeeding, is that a great number of us respond powerfully now and keep mobilizing more people to do so. If you do absolutely nothing else, consider rearranging your life to exclude all meat from your diet, stop traveling by car and aircraft, substantially reduce your water consumption by scaling down your ownership of electronic devices which require massive amounts of water to manufacture, and only eat biodynamically or organically grown whole food. And tell people why you're doing so. This might give those of us who fight strategically, which can include you, if you so choose, a little more time to overturn the structural and remaining behavioral drivers of extinction, which will require a profound change in the very nature of human society, including all of its major political, economic, military, legal, and social institutions and processes, most of which will need to be abolished. If this sounds radical, remember that they are about to vanish anyways. Our strategy must be to replace them with functional equivalents, all of which are readily available, with some briefly outlined in the various documents mentioned in the plan above. That's an important paragraph. All of our systems are about to vanish, and the only way we can change anything is to replace them with functional equivalents. It won't happen, you might say. And to be candid, I sincerely believe that you are highly probably right. I have spent a lifetime observing, analyzing, writing about, and acting to heal dysfunctional and violent human behavior, and for that reason, I am not going to delude myself that anything less than what I have outlined above will achieve the outcome that I seek, to avert human extinction, but I am realistic. The insane individuals who control the institutions that are driving extinction will never act to avert it. If they were sane enough to do so, they would have been directing and coordinating these institutions and taking action for the past 40 years. This is why we must resist them strategically. Moreover, I am only too well aware of the bulk of the human population that has been terrorized into powerlessness and won't even act. But our best chance lies in offering them our personal example and giving them simple and various options for responding effectively. It is going to be a tough fight for human survival, particularly this late in the game. Nevertheless, I intend to fight until my last breath. I hope that you will too. I hope that you will too. The thing about fear is very real for me. I daily feel like I should be doing way more. I daily feel like I should be, on some level, I'm kind of stuck in this paradigm, and that's not an excuse. I have like obligations to, this life that I created, AKA children. And I also was so wrapped up in creating this life, I guess, and some kind of semblance of normalcy, right? Normalcy in our paradigm, that I got myself into a lot of debt in order to do that. So now I'm on this treadmill of debt, and I am also beholden to fulfilling a role. What's even more difficult is that I'm getting divorced, and so if my child's mother and I were still together and we were a unit, we might be able to go like, let's pick up and go somewhere, or let's pick up and live a different life. But because now, you know, my child is like on some level a ward of the state, I actually have to stay here and be the co-parent, the legal, lawful co-parent to a parent who wants to stay here and legal and lawful co-parent, you know, in this system. So I am, you know, if I don't want to leave my daughter, and I don't want to, and I'm not going to, so I cannot, which really, really sucks. And that includes having to run on the treadmill and run in the rat race of everything else that goes along with that. There's no way out for me because I'm not going to choose another way out. That being said, every single day, I think that there are a million other things that I could be doing. I could be leading boycotts, political, you know, some kind of like political action groups, however small they might be. I could be, you know, leading like, community workshops. I could, you know, there's all these other things that I could be doing inside the paradigm that I'm stuck in. And a lot of the reason that I don't do those things is because of fear, because I fear being outside. Like it's a scary thing. Like, you all know when you talk to people about this, how fucking crazy they get, right? They're just like, don't talk to me about this. I don't care about that. I don't want to know about that. I don't want to listen to this. Like, so what if the world ends? We're just going to, you know, just continue trying to be happy. And on some level, that's a very sane answer. But, you know, if you are like, listen, I'm going to go do something about this, then you put yourself outside of a lot of society, you know, and that is a really lonely, scary place to be. And, you know, so on some level, there's nothing we can do mindset, I feel, is, you know, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but it's too late to do anything mindset is on some level a panacea for that fear of actually putting yourself out there, putting yourself on the line for something you believe in. And of all the articles that I've read in the last couple of days, you know, many of them have been written by climate activists who are saying like, nobody cares. I spent 20 years of my life doing this, or 30 years of my life doing this, and nobody gives a flying rat's ass. So, you know, why put yourself through all that pain other than for altruistic, moral, you know, glory, you know, whatever, self. If that's honorable to you, then good. Some people might not feel that that's all that honorable. I don't know. So yeah, I'm just being real that it's, you know, a lot of my, you know, there's lots of things that I really want to do, and a lot of, there's also a lot of desire to just kind of enjoy, you know, if we have little time left, I would like to just kind of enjoy the little things if I can, instead of run myself into a ditch, trying to save something that's unsavable. I don't know. But these are questions that I ponder every single day. I'm going to finish with this article. Obviously, Florence is heading towards the East Coast as 1.5 million flee Hurricane Florence. Worries grow over half dozen nuclear power plants in the storm's path. Half dozen. At first, I heard there were two. Flooding-prone Brunswick nuclear plant among rickety old Fukushima-style reactors in likely path of Hurricane Florence. With 1.5 million residents now under orders to evacuate their homes in preparation for Hurricane Florence's landfall in Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, the region faces the possibility of catastrophe should the storm damage one or more of the nuclear power plants which lie in its potential path. As the Associated Press reported on Monday, the storm's potential path also includes half a dozen nuclear power plants, pits holding coal ash and other industrial waste, and numerous eastern hog farms that store animal waste in massive open-air lagoons. The plants thought to lie on the path of the hurricane, which is expected to make landfall on the southeastern U.S. coast on Thursday, include North Carolina's Brunswick Nuclear Power Plant in Southport, Duke Energy Sutton Steam Plant in Wilmington, and South Carolina's VC Summer Nuclear Station in Jenkinsville. Florence will approach the Carolina coast Thursday night into Friday with winds in excess of 100 miles per hour, along with flooding rains. This system will approach the Brunswick nuclear plant as well as the Duke Sutton Steam Plant. Ed Valley, a North Carolina-based meteorologist, told Zero Hedge. Dangerous wind, gusts, and flooding will be the largest threats to these operations, with inland plants being susceptible to inland flooding. Climate State, tweet from Climate State: the nuclear power plant is literally directly in the path of Florence at the southern coast near Wilmington. In 2015, the Huffington Post and Weather.com identified Brunswick as one of the East Coast's most at-risk nuclear power plants in the event of rising sea levels and the storm surges that come with them. As of Tuesday afternoon, Hurricane Florence was thought to have the potential to cause massive damage to our country, according to Jeff Byard, Associate Administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The storm was labeled a Category 4 tropical storm with the potential to become a Category 5 as it nears the coast, with 130-mile-per-hour winds blowing about 900 miles off the coast of Cape Fear, North Carolina. Meteorologists warned the hurricane-force winds in the region by midday Thursday, with storm surges reaching up to 12 feet or higher. The 2011 Fukushima disaster remains the highest-profile nuclear catastrophe caused by a natural disaster. The tsunami that hit Japan in March of that year disabled 3 of the plant's reactors, causing a radioactive release which forced hundreds of thousands of people from their homes. In 2014, Shane Shiflett and Kate Shepard of the Huffington Post reported on the risk storms like Florence pose to nuclear plants. Most nuclear power facilities were built well before scientists understood just how high sea levels might rise in the future. And for power plants, the most serious threat is likely to come from surges during storms. Higher sea levels mean that flooding will travel farther inland, creating potential hazards in areas that may have previously been considered safe. During hurricanes, many nuclear facilities will power down, but this is not a surefire way to avoid disaster, wrote Shepard and Shiflett. Even when a plant is not operating, the spent fuel stored on-site, typically uranium, will continue to emit heat and must be cooled using equipment that relies on the plant's own power, they wrote. Flooding can cause a loss of power, and in serious conditions, it can damage backup generators. Without a cooling system, reactors can overheat and damage the facility to the point of releasing radioactive material. The end. So cross our fingers that this isn't that scenario this time. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so at the links below. Hope to be back tomorrow with another video. Thank you guys, as always, for sending me the articles. And there were a ton of comments from the video yesterday, and I didn't even have a chance to look at all of them. I will try to either later tonight or tomorrow kind of respond to y'all. But yes, thank you all for being a part of this as always and as usual. I hope to be back tomorrow with another video. Until next time, peace.